Clara's got away with words, stories flying just like birds. Guess who battled and won? Conversations and much fun. Tales from people with stories unique, secrets hidden and life's mystique. Every talk just makes you think, the show being over before you blink. Clara in conversation just for you.
Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to another podcast of Clara in Conversation with me, Claire Ford. Today on the podcast I am chatting with Billy Davies, a much-travelled football manager and player, starting off his playing career with Rangers and then very bravely accepting roles at three of the big East Midlands rival clubs, playing with Leicester City and then going on to manage both Nottingham Forest and Derby County. Billy's passion for football has led to him keeping copious records of important advice proffered by legends of the game and also led to him studying player psychology. Just recently, Billy has accepted an offer to come back into the beautiful game for the first time in over a decade. He is a much sought-after interviewee and I am absolutely delighted that he has agreed to be my guest today on Clara in Conversation. Hello, Billy, and welcome to the podcast.
Claire, I'm absolutely delighted to be here, delighted and looking forward to chatting to you. And let's talk about lots of good football stories and have lots of fun.
Absolutely delighted to have you and I hope everybody at home enjoys it. Now, Billy, as I mentioned in the introduction, you started your professional playing career with your boyhood heroes Rangers. But that could have all been very different for you as a young teenager if you had agreed to sign for Manchester United. I understand that you were homesick. Hard to believe when you were tripping over legendary Scots Joe Jordan, Gordon McLean, Lou Macari, Tommy Docherty, Sir Matt Busby, Paddy Crerand, Arthur Albiston and many others at Old Trafford. But seriously though, Billy, do we as football fans expect too much from these young boys and girls who are, like yourself, removed from their home environment, family circle and friends and are expected to adapt to a different country, very often with a different culture, and to almost mechanically focus on achieving the goal of being an elite sportsman or sportswoman?
Yes, it's very interesting, a great question, Claire, because obviously I was going down to Manchester from the age of about 12 to, I think it was 15, just before my 16th birthday. And I thoroughly enjoyed going down. I was taken down by one of my great mentors. I've got two great mentors. One is my father Billy, and a second great mentor is a guy called Jimmy Dickey, who was the chief scout in Scotland for Manchester United. He obviously watched me as a young player at school and at boys' club level. Eventually, he made contact with my parents. He asked us to come down to Manchester, and we've done that on all the school holidays and at every opportunity that I could get. We've been down to Manchester, down to the famous Cliff training ground where all these superstar players and a wonderful manager called Dave Sexton, a very famous English manager. Dave Sexton was fantastic. And in a nutshell, Claire, I was going down there, had a great time. I went on a youth tournament to Switzerland with people like Norman Whiteside and Mark Hughes and Clayton Blackmore and Scott McGarvey, who's a very famous Scottish lad that played at Manchester United as well. And I come back and I just took homesick. I was in the halls of residence. I took this terrible homesickness. I come back from Manchester, it had nothing to do with the club or the people. They were absolutely fantastic. I just took homesick. I told my parents I don't think I wanted to go back down. And then in came Mr. John Gregg and Rangers Football Club, Willie Thornton. And I ended up turning down a 5-year contract with Manchester United and eventually signed a 5-year contract with Rangers.
And staying with Manchester United, Billy, you said that you not signing for them is the biggest regret in your life. Why is this the case?
Well, I don't think you get opportunities very often like that, Claire. Not going to Rangers was not the biggest mistake. Just getting that opportunity to go to a club like Manchester United. I mean, these chances and opportunities don't come along that often. And I was very fortunate that they'd been watching me. I had some great trips down there, met wonderful people, but it certainly had nothing to do with joining Rangers. Why I say that because I genuinely believe that it was an opportunity of a lifetime. And looking back on it, me not going to Manchester United because of a little bit of homesickness and naivety, I've got to say I feel it was a tremendous error and a big mistake in relation to what could have been a different playing career.
Even with that, you played with some phenomenal players. And in football, Billy, there seems to be a lot of players who emerge from the same families, football dynasties almost. For example, we've had the Fergusons, the McStays, the McGinns, the Greys, the Nevilles, the Ferdinands, the Charltons, and many more examples. You and your brother John were both professional footballers, as was your brother-in-law, John Spencer. Do you think that there's a reason why so many families produce good footballers, often down the generations? Is it because footballers often coach their relatives in the game? Is it down to sporting genes? Is it plain nepotism? It can't be just down to a coincidence.
I think it's upbringing, Claire. I think obviously when we were younger, we played a lot more football in the street. We played across the road in the available grass area that we could find. And we just, from a very young age, we got involved in the game. We loved the game. We loved training with all the school friends and all our neighbours that were around. It was all different age groups. We had a wonderful time with all these different people. And I just think it's a case of the upbringing plays a huge part. Back then, it was all about the ball. It was all about the mates. It was all about the street football. It was all about whatever grass pitch was available or grass area, we took it. And I just found myself, like my brother, we loved the game. My dad played a big influence in that. He was also a very good footballer. And, we used to go and watch him play a lot. He was a tremendous influence in me and my brother taking up the sport, if you like, Claire. And then, of course, my sister in later years, she found herself getting very friendly with this little player, fantastic player called John Spencer, who just happened to be also a footballer. And that's how we kind of got Spenny involved in the family. But certainly me and John, we owe a lot to my dad and my mother for all the Christmas presents and getting us the boots and the strips and the track suits and the shin guards and all the other things that you need, Claire, to go and play with your boys' club or your school. And then latterly, as you said, we then find ourselves with this wonderful player called John Spencer coming into the family. And it certainly gave us as a family a lot of opportunity to really get torn into each other about results and performances and who was the best player, etc. So it was all good, Claire.
That's fantastic. It always seems to run in families. That seems to be a common thing that you find a lot. And we'll go on to speak about football psychology later on, but in the past you've alluded to a certain feeling of imposter syndrome while you were at Rangers. That's incredible considering Manchester United were so keen to sign you. And you also went on to prove that you were a very gifted midfielder. You only have to watch the YouTube footage of you scoring that fantastically executed goal for St Mirren against Rangers in September 1988 to be able to see that. So why do you think it didn't quite work out for you at Rangers? Was it bad timing, bad luck? Or was there a more complex reason as to why you didn't end up becoming a regular starter for the team that you loved?
Well, my brother John, who was a fantastic player also, and John Spencer, they want to take all the credit, Claire, and they will claim that in the family they were the best players. But when you go to a club like Rangers, as my brother John did also, Spenny was there as well. From my own point of view, I just think that at that time there was a lack of confidence. I was a little bit naive. I think I went to that club at the wrong time. I think timing played a big part as well. It's all about getting that opportunity. It's all about building confidence. It's all about just finding yourself in a good dressing room, etc. So I just think, as I said earlier about the mistake not going to Manchester, I think the Rangers situation was probably wrong time, wrong place. And there was just, from my point of view, a little bit of lacking in confidence. Probably wasn't arrogant enough. Probably didn't believe in myself until I would think later on, when I got to about mid-20s, I started to find my confidence and I started to settle down and play the way that I potentially could play. But I think as a young player getting into Rangers, I think probably gave too many people too much respect, allowed the environment to kind of, I feel like, overshadow me a little bit. But having said that, there certainly was a lack of confidence, a lack of belief. But more importantly, probably joining Rangers in 79-80, it was a club in turmoil. And it was a club that was changing direction. And as a young player getting in there, then, of course, what you needed to be is you needed to be a lot more arrogant, a lot more confident in what you do to force yourself into the team. And that would be my great advice to young players. We all mature at different age groups, Claire. You get early players in their early career that come through, like the James McFaddens at Motherwell, and of course the Barry Fergusons at Rangers. What these young lads had was a tremendous maturity, but more importantly, great arrogance and great confidence in their ability. And unfortunately, I've got to say, when I was younger, I certainly had the ability, but I didn't quite have that arrogance and that confidence that I think you need to break into a huge club like Rangers and play in that first team. So disappointing as it was, but having said that, no regrets. It was a great experience. There was great people. I get taught an awful lot from John Gregg and then Jock Wallace and then latterly Graham Souness. They had tremendous coaches by their side that gave me some great information and again, that great education that's required. So Rangers was a good experience, Claire, although it never worked out as well as what we would have liked to. It was a tremendous experience as a young player. And looking back on it now, hindsight's a wonderful thing, as we know. Looking back and you can see all the flaws and all the mistakes and all the good and the bad. But certainly from a learning curve, I've got to say, Claire, I had a tremendous time, tremendous teammates, great people, wonderful club. And it just was wrong time, wrong place for me.
Mm-hmm. And it's good that you're seeing the positives in that situation as well, which is important.
Absolutely.
And talented young footballers nowadays, Billy, often have their careers mapped out for them, with some of them dropping out of the game for a variety of reasons. Some youngsters react differently to various situations that can occur in their lives and careers, and others are more resilient. The tragic suicide of Lou Macari's son Jonathan, after being released by Nottingham Forest, hinted at the enormous pressures that are put on these young boys and girls in today's game. Psychologically, Billy, how difficult was it for you to come to terms with the fact that your time at Rangers was coming to an end?
Well, that's what you accept, Claire. As I said before, I went 5 years and then I went a year, month-to-month contract once Graham Souness came in. And as you get older, as we all know, we get wiser and we start to learn from things. And I just knew that for me, I had to go and play first-team football, get a pedigree, and the experience of playing in that first team. And it was just time for me to move on. At every club, there's always a time for players to move on. And as I said to you before, because it doesn't happen at one club doesn't mean it doesn't go great at the next club. And we see that in many, many examples all over the country. So it was just time for me to move, Claire. I'd been at a club for 5 years plus that 1 year, month to month. I had to go and try a new experience, a new challenge, play first team football. And of course, when opportunities come up, then you've just got to look at it and decide, this is my next move. This is a great challenge. This is a good project. And you just move on with your career. Dust yourself down and then build again.
It's a great attitude to have. It's good that you obviously have that mentality.
Yep.
And in 1986, Billy, you were released by Rangers and headed for Sweden. initially to join the club Young Shopping, but quickly transferred to the higher profile Elfsborg. How did you come to the attention of a Swedish football team, Billy, considering at the time the Swedish Football League, the Allsvenskan, did not permit the signing of any foreign players for their teams until just over a decade before you joined them, with you only being the second ever Scottish-born player to play in the Swedish League at the time? Did Pollock's very own Robert Fritz put in a good word for you?
No, unfortunately, but I don't think it was. It was not Pritchie, I can tell you. Although I did have a great relationship with Robert Pritchie, he was a fantastic lad, great teammate, and he did very well at Rangers. But no, it was actually a guy called Ian McNeil, who was the former assistant caretaker manager, I believe, at Chelsea. Also was at a couple of Scottish clubs as well, Claire. And it was him that actually contacted us and basically says to us, he had a friend over in Sweden. They were looking for a ball-playing midfield player. Would I be keen to go to Sweden and try a different culture? And I've got to say that it was a great opportunity again to go to a foreign country. We went to school every day and learnt the language. At that point, myself and my partner went across to Sweden. We learnt the language every day. It was a great experience. We learnt the culture of Sweden. It was a wonderful place to live. Fantastic experience in the football situation, but it just came right out the blue, Claire. But I would always advise young players, if they get the opportunity to go to a foreign country, then take that on, because learning a different culture, learning a different training programme, and understanding the different levels of teams and games and how they go about their play. Again, Claire, it was wonderful. Great experience, fantastic time. Met some great people, had great success over there, moving from Young Shopping and then going to IF Elfsborg in the Premier League was a fantastic opportunity. But more importantly, understanding the culture, learning the language and mixing on a day-to-day basis with that whole group of people that were teaching you a whole new way of life. I've got to say, Claire, it was a wonderful time, but more importantly, great education in my football career, not only as a player, but also going into coaching. It was a big, big help.
That's fantastic. And it's clear, Billy, that you had exercised the demon of homesickness by the time you headed to Sweden. Borås, the city in which Elfsborg play, is just over 40 miles inland from Gothenburg. In terms of the language and the culture, it must have been quite daunting for you, still only in your early 20s, to decide to move to Sweden. It's fair to say, Billy, that the standard of Scandinavian football during the mid-1970s and early 1980s was pretty patchy. However, from the mid-1980s, Sweden and Denmark were regularly qualifying for World Cups and European Championships, with Gothenburg winning the UEFA Cup twice in the 1980s, and Denmark actually going on to lift the European Championship trophy in 1992. Sweden and Denmark could usually boast of formidable international teams, with Norway on occasion getting in on the act. What has happened since you first went to Sweden in 1986 that has seen the emergence of such incredible international Scandinavian teams that have also produced some of the greatest ever players the game has seen? Ibrahimovic, Larsson, the Laudrup brothers, Schmeichel, Solskjaer, Haaland, and the like. How did he get it so right? And what changes do you think they have made in their game that has seen such a dramatic improvement over the years?
Well, I think the first thing that struck me, Claire, was attitude. Although these guys back then, these guys were full-time working, and they decided, although the football was full-time and they did train from about 3:30, 4 o'clock up to about 6:30. So they trained every day full-time, but what they decided to do is they all wanted to keep their own jobs, and they went to their jobs from the 7 o'clock in the morning until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think you looked at the attitude of these guys, that although they weren't classified as full-time, they certainly were training and putting in the hours full-time, but they decided that their jobs were very important, both when they leave football and had to carry on in a different direction, then they had that other profession, which was very important. But more importantly, they felt that the balance to having both opportunities or both situations was very good. But to answer your question, Claire, attitude, first class, fitness was excellent. These guys really, really knew how to get about their work and very respectful, really, really tough professionals. But for me, it was all about the discipline of the Swedish football. It was all about the fitness of Swedish football. At that point, as you said, in the mid-80s, they had some tremendous teams in Gothenburg. There was also Roy Hodgson's team, a team called Örgryte. I remember a famous Arsenal player called Anders Limpar, who also played at that point, played against him a number of times as well. So the talent was there. There's some tremendous talent. Although I'm talking about fitness and discipline, which was very high up in the agenda. But also there was really good players, great ability, very, very clever, intelligent players. And clearly all the clubs back then were doing something right because they certainly were producing players, Claire. And they certainly were producing very good sides, as you said, both domestically and also internationally.
Fantastic. And during your time at Rangers, Billy, you were rubbing shoulders with some of the most influential and important players in the club's history. In fact, 6 out of the top 10 players in terms of appearances were at Ibrox while you were there. John Greig, Derek Johnston, Sandy Jardine, Davy Cooper, Ali McCoist and Peter McCloy, whose combined total appearances for Rangers were 3,364 games. How important were these influential figures in shaping how you viewed the game, but more importantly, how you applied what they said and did to form your own style of football management?
Well, I'll tell you what's really worrying, that these are actually a lot of my teammates. That's the worrying bit. all these famous Rangers players, all these icons at Glasgow Rangers were actually in the same dressing room as me, the majority of them. So I've got to say they were tremendous. Obviously, when I was a young player joining the club, and you're talking about the great John Greig, you're talking about the great Derek Johnson, Sandy Jardine, Ali McCoist. As I go on later, Coisty comes in, I think, around about the kind of 82, 83. But certainly when I first joined, you had the Sandy Jardines, Peter McCloys, Derek Johnsons. John Greig, of course, was part of that, but he was just breaking into becoming the manager of Rangers at that point. And then laterally, in comes Coisty and people like that. But just tremendous, as I said before, Claire, tremendous teammates. Gave me some great memories, a lot of great education, and the experience that you got from these guys as a young player. When you done something wrong, Claire, they knew how to put the boot in your backside, let me tell you. If some of these young players today think they've got a tough time inside football clubs, and I can assure you, back then, Claire, these guys knew how to put the boot in you. And these guys knew how to sort you out and get that strong character that's required for you to go on, either as a player or go into coaching or managing. I think that great character education that you got for these guys, discipline, and all the disciplines that was required in training, and also running up and down the Ghislaine Sands with all these players didn't help it as well. But no, Claire, I've got to say, great teammates, great experience, wonderful education. The only downside of that, Claire, is that these are actually my teammates and a very, very big worry. It's a big worry for me when I look back at these guys being teammates.
Sometimes I feel in the modern game you miss these big characters, and the reason why they were the way they were was that they were passionate about what they did. They were hard on you, but at the same time, it was because they cared about the game and they were passionate about it. I always think that's important in a game.
Well, sorry, Claire, not only that, what's important as well is you've got to understand these were huge personalities. When they walked into the dressing room or walked into the club, then you could just tell they were huge personalities. So these guys were very vocal. Their communication skills in comparison today, they'd get great communication, and they never shut up during a game. They were always on top of you when you made mistakes or you weren't in the right position. They come in before games, half-time and after games, and really have a go and say their piece. So from that point of view, I think the personality, the character and the communication of what I'm seeing today in a lot of these young players, then that's the big factor, I think, back then, that you knew you were dealing with teammates that didn't allow you to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if you were in that wrong place at the wrong time, then they soon told you and let you know, and they gave you that slap in the head. And again, it was all for the right reasons. And there's no doubt it certainly helped you grow as a young player, but also mature as a young person. I think they brought great maturity to you.
Yeah. And sometimes you need that just to grow and to develop as a person as well, not just as a player. And not all great footballers, Billy, have what it takes to become good football managers. Sir Bobby Charlton, who is often credited as England's greatest ever player, had 2 very short but yet unspectacular attempts at football management with Preston North End and Wigan. Other footballing greats have entered into the managerial game but have failed miserably. Jose Mourinho had a pretty undistinguished career as a player but was a very successful manager. What goes into making a good football manager, Billy?
It's a great question. I was just talking about that today with the Morton manager, Dougie Emery. We had a fantastic conversation regarding that. Why does it happen? And what makes you a good manager? Well, as I said to Dougie today, I honestly believe a lot of it's to do with upbringing. I think it comes from your parents and your family DNA. There's absolutely no doubt that when you go through your pathway, then you can certainly look back and the street football helped you. Playing with older players helped you. As I said, the communication was very, very good back then in relation to people being on top of you and helping you and directing you. But my honest opinion, Clara, is I think that having a father that was very keen footballer, played at a very good level, was a very good player, great mentor in my career, in my life. You then start playing the game. It's in your blood because of that street football and across the grass with your pals. You start to really think long and hard. I think the World Cups, early World Cups, 74, 78 and so on, played a huge part for me. I had the privilege of watching some tremendous players away back in those early World Cups. Fantastic teams, fantastic players. So it just gave me a love for the game. And even as a young player in my early 20s, Claire, I was always dead keen on coaching, always dead keen on learning and educating, not only football, but I am a big student of the game and student of other sports. And it's just something that's in your makeup. And I do believe that your early upbringing, your family DNA, and of course what's around you, I think that plays a huge part on what eventually allowed me to go and do something that I love. I just love the game. I love being involved with players. I love coaching and helping teams and players get better. And it all came from the early 20s, Claire. It really was a fantastic period for me, not only playing, but also coaching and coaching many different levels and many different people.
Absolutely. And you started your managerial apprenticeship, Billy, at Motherwell before taking over the managerial role. You then had roles with Preston North End, Derby County, and with Nottingham Forest twice. With Derby County, you had spectacular success, taking them into the Premier League at the first time of asking. However, with all your other managerial appointments, you seem to have been a victim of incredible bad luck combined with other factors such as lack of funds for player purchases. You were the victim of your own successes occurred at Derby, as well as having interference from other external forces. You were tempted back into the game and accepted a role recently with Greenock Morton as technical head coach. With all the turmoil, sheer disappointments and frustrations that managers and coaches alike face on a daily basis, what still attracts you to it?
The love for the game, Claire. I do love the game. The game is a fantastic game to play. It's a fantastic game to coach. I love spending time with players, staff members. I love the challenges of opposition. I love making and helping players get better and teams get better. So I think it's just a love for the game. They'll never drive that out of me, Claire, no matter good or bad experiences. That will always be in my heart and in my soul. And I certainly look forward to many years to come to continue on this very exciting coaching pathway that I find myself on. And life's all about twists and turns. You've just got to go with the twists. You've just got to go with the turns. But my message is loud and clear to all the young coaches and young managers out there. Never stop, never give in. Keep learning, keep educating, and keep believing in your own ability.
That's a fantastic message, and the fact that you have the passion for it is just, it makes it even better, and it makes it even more the reason why you should do it.
Yep.
And you and your management team, Billy, famously had a 2-day debrief locked away in your house after you parted company with Nottingham Forest back in 2014. You discussed everything from training to recruitment, eating habits to the length of the grass on the pitch. You're known in the game, Billy, for being very progressive in your approach to football management, having kept a record of any pieces of advice you have been given by legendary figures in the game, both during your playing career and also while you were studying player psychology. Certain high-profile managers like Gordon Strachan freely admit that their strategy is to buy and nurture the best players available to them with the expectation that their talent will win the day. What are the benefits to your approach to football management?
Well, I think it depends on what club you join, because every club, Claire, has always got a different remit. You know, for example, I joined Motherwell as a young manager at 33, and the then chairman, John Boyle, Pat Nevin was involved. Their ambition was that they wanted to be the third force in Scottish football. So when you get that kind of remit, then, of course, you have the discussion of what the club are prepared to do to become the third force in Scottish football. And then, of course, you follow suit and you do the best you can with the resources provided and the best you can with what takes place over that period. Going from Motherwell to Preston, I had a great time with Craig Brown. Sadly lost Craig, but fantastic time with Craig as a young, if you like, a young assistant manager. I learnt a lot from Craig, eventually taking over from Craig. And at Preston then, Claire, there was no remit really. I mean, the club just wanted to be very competitive. But I've got to say that we had a fantastic couple of years, great times at Preston, wonderful players, wonderful staff, great people, and a really good time at Preston. But there was not any real remit except every year get better. I think that was the most important message. You go and join Derby. It's a 3-year plan. Again, a different culture, a different type of club. The 3-year plan is simple. Year 1, mid-table. Year 2, top 10. Year 3, promotion. Stupidly, Claire, I go and do it after 11 months with great staff and great players, wonderful fans. But stupidly, done it after 11 months. And of course, we find ourselves getting into the Premier League. Unfortunately, getting in 2 years too early. Although, having said that, there was an outgoing board that decided that they would cash in, move on. And unfortunately, we had to go our separate ways. But when we joined Nottingham Forest, again, what is the remit at Nottingham Forest 1, if you want to call it that? Quite simply, Nigel Doughty's message was clear, the chairman: get us out of this division, be in the Championship. That is the remit. That's the plan you work to. You then sit down and put all the finances together, what the club are prepared to do, etc. And then again, you have a right go. With the right go, Claire, it was great. We got to a couple of playoffs. Again, tremendous players, tremendous staff, tremendous people at the club, wonderful fan base, and a great time and great memories for me. And then, out of the blue, second time, Mr. Al-Asawi from Kuwait, who took over Forest, comes in. And he said to me that he wanted the third star on the jersey, being the European Cup. So when you get that type of remit, you understand the cost implications. The board understand what it's going to take. And to answer your question, Claire, very, very lengthy reply, it's all about remit. It's all about club remit. It's all about what the club are planning and what they would like to happen. And at every club, Claire, you face different choices, you face different demands. And I've had some very good demands put on me at clubs, great challenges, wonderful opportunities. And you just go and you do the best we can, and that's exactly what we did.
It's amazing. And you're also known in the game for being very candid and straight speaking and for putting the needs of the club first. An inevitable consequence of this is that there is a lot of collateral damage, with many young players having to be given the devastating news that they are just not right for the club or that they are just not good enough and are being released. On a personal level, Billy, how do you deal with this unpleasant side to the game? Is it just about managing players' expectations? Is it just part and parcel of the game, or does it keep you awake at night?
No, it's part of the game. It's the thing that keeps you excited, Claire. It's the thing that drives you on. You've got the club challenge. Of course, that's the demand of the custodians of the club. They will tell you what the remit is, as I said to you earlier. And then from that, you start to identify players. You take on the players that are already at the club. And amongst that, as managers, we've got to make very tough, difficult decisions. And you've just got to try and do the best that you can when you make those decisions. I always believe, no matter what happens, you always treat those players as if they're your own son. I've always tried to do that. One of the pleasing aspects, Claire, that today, from every club that I've managed, I get lots of contact from younger players and senior players from the club, just again reiterating how they were treated, the times that they had at the club. A lot of them did not make the first team. It just wasn't their time. As I said, like myself at Rangers, we all mature at different ages. We all come through at different points. And sometimes young players need to go, like I did at Rangers, go to challenges new, gain some confidence, build up their belief, and then from that point they fly. So, no, I think it's a difficult part, Claire. But you've just got to be honest with people. You've got to be transparent. You've got to try and let them know the reasons why, and you've got to show that courtesy that's required when you're dealing with these players. Because as a manager, Claire, it's not just about the 11 that's starting your team. You've got to think about the substitutes that are maybe involved. And then, of course, some of the players that actually don't make the squad. And then over and above that, you've got all these younger players. So tough decisions, Claire, you've got to make as a manager. But I think doing it with honesty, doing it with transparency, I think that certainly gets the respect from these guys over the if you like, the many years that follow. And I think that's one of the pleasing factors that I've had great response from all these players that I've worked with and managed. But the great thing is they still talk about the way they were treated and how things were handled back then, which is great to hear.
You've got to get the balance right. So you be honest and transparent with them, but then it's not been brutal. It's been aware of the players' feelings as well, but also just being straight with them too. So it's a hard decision, and I don't envy making that.
Exactly, Claire. I think the one thing I think you always try and do is it has to be the person first, footballer second.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be. You've got to. I always feel, first of all, treat the human being. We're all different. You've got the introverts, you've got the extroverts, you've got different upbringings, you've got different family backgrounds, etc. So all of these things are very, very important. But I think when you go into the clubs, you know yourself that your time will come where you need to move on as well. So while you're in that club, you try and treat the person first, the respect that they deserve and the way that you should treat them. And then, of course, after that, you then look at the player and you look at the best interest of the team and the best interest of the club.
Absolutely. And for a manager who is a great studier of the game, knows precisely what he wants from his teams, is very driven and has incredible self-belief, you seem to favour players that are what you would call mavericks. Players like Andy Gorham, James McFadden and your old teammate Moody Blue Davy Cooper. As someone who knows exactly what he wants, why do you favour these types of players like Andy Gorham who cannot be controlled?
Well, I think we all know that what you get from the flawed geniuses, Claire. If you want to call them the flawed geniuses are ones that deliver. They've just got that makeup. They've got something in their makeup that some press may call them flawed geniuses. But when they go into football matches, then they've got that self-belief, they've got that confidence, they've just got that ability to go and make things happen. And through my managerial career, I've got to say, even playing career, I have worked beside and played beside a lot of what they would regard as mavericks / flawed geniuses. But when things had to happen, when goals had to be scored, when matches had to be won, then they were always the guys that just popped up with something extra. And it's the same as management, Claire. You get into management, and of course, you look at all these players that you sign, and of course, I've always tried to, first of all, understand the person first. We can't all be the same. We're not all made the same, so you've got to allow for people to be who they are. But I do believe that the flawed geniuses are the special ones, Claire, that can sometimes make big things happen on big occasions at big times.
Absolutely. Now, Billy, since you were a 15-year-old boy in 1979, you have kept a record of any tips and advice you have been given by legendary managers, coaches and players in the game you have worked with, and methodology and ideas used by these players. Did you start doing this with the definite idea that you would one day go into football management, or was it initially just to improve your own game?
I just remember as a 16-year-old, Claire, it started at Rangers, probably at Manchester United, when I was down there as a young boy, and whatever training session we'd done, whatever exercise we'd done, I would come back and take notes. I was just and even today I'm still a big note taker. I love taking notes. I love learning from these people. And back then, Claire, I used to come home from training. I would write things down, training sessions that we'd done that I thought were good. Any conversations I had with the coaching staff or the manager or any information given, I always would take notes on it. And every single club you go into and every manager and coach and player that you deal with, there's always that big education you get from them, whether it's a training session, a communication, a bit of advice, or whatever it may be. And I've done it from a very early age. I will continue to do that, Claire, because I love it. I love taking notes. I love listening to people. I love watching people and learning from people as well. And not only football, but many other sports. I'm a big, as I said earlier, I'm a big student of football and coach education and fitness, etc., psychology, and just all of these things that matter. Claire, I'm a big, very big student. So it was no other reason, Claire, except it was just in my makeup. It was something that I'd done. There was no plan for it. I just liked it. I believed it was important. But it was always nice to go back into my study, Claire, bring out the book from 1979, 1980 and see what we'd done on that day in training, and also what conversations took place with coaching staff and manager, and it certainly did help me.
Now, Billy, as I mentioned earlier on, you have suffered from horrendous bad luck all throughout your managerial career. In each of your appointments, you come in and hit the ground running in your first season, galvanising the team, making good acquisitions, to then be derailed by horrendous bad luck in your second season. At Motherwell, you come in and save them from relegation, and then the next season you almost take them into European football before the club undergoes a financial crisis and then you depart. At Preston North End, you narrowly miss out on promotion to the Premier League in the playoff final, and then in your second season, you go on a 25-game unbeaten run and then narrowly lose out once again, only this time in the playoff semi-final. At Derby County, you have phenomenal success, taking them into the Premier League at the first time of asking. And then you suffer from a lack of funds for player purchases. At Nottingham Forest, you join mid-season, and then in your first full season, you go on an 18-game unbeaten run, and like at Preston North End, you narrowly miss out on promotion to the Premier League in the playoff final. Your second stint at Forest starts with you being rewarded with a contract extension, and in your second season, your well-publicised fallout with the club owner results in you departing the club. If it wasn't for bad luck, Billy, you would have no luck at all. Luck and superstition play a massive part in football. Do you believe in luck, and are you superstitious?
Well, first of all, I don't believe that I'm unlucky. When you rhyme off what you just rhymed off, Claire, I'm actually very fortunate with playoffs and promotions and all those records broken, great success at clubs, fighting relegation, previous seasons, getting to playoffs, etc. You know, there's a lot of reports and papers that are miles from the truth. There was never a fallout at Forest the second time. Myself and the owner had a great relationship, for example, just like I had at every other club. But sometimes the goalposts move. Sometimes things happen not because you're doing things wrong, but because you're doing things right. That's what football clubs are, Claire. They just from time to time, the goalposts move, the agenda changes, and the situation changes. But from my point of view, Claire, all the way back from my Motherwell days, the club went into that financial turmoil, as you said. Preston North End decided that the two playoffs that we got to, they decided that it was time for them to sell me and move on. That's a decision that was out with my hands. From Preston, we go to Derby. Derby decided after the promotion that the board would be outgoing and they would sell the club and move on. Again, it's out my hands. We go to Forest the first time, and after two playoffs again, Claire, the board decided they were going in a different direction. Again, that's their prerogative, no problem. And then the second time, no fallout with Falvaz Alasawi, very good relationship. As he said to me, Claire, when he tried to bring me back on two other occasions after he sacked me. And then, of course, when he tried to buy Bolton a number of years later and he wanted me to get back as manager, quite simply, Claire, in his words, I listened to the wrong people. I want you to come back to the club because I listened to the wrong people. So, no, Claire, there's no fallouts. There's no bad luck. As far as I'm concerned, I was very fortunate. I get great success with great players, with great staff, at great clubs, supported by great fans. And that's just football. Football has got a lot of twists and turns in it, Claire. And what you've just got to do is exit the club when the time is right for both parties. Dust yourself down and then look forward to your next project. And that's exactly what's happening now.
Absolutely. It's good that you obviously have that perspective on it as well, which is important.
Yeah.
Now, Billy, as I also mentioned earlier on, you've played alongside some of the biggest icons ever to grace the Ibrox Stadium stage. Rangers icons like Coop, Coisty, Big DJ and Sandy Jardine. In comparison to this, how good could Gordon Ramsay's Rangers career have been if injury hadn't curtailed his short playing career?
Well, that's interesting because I do remember as a young S form, I think it was S form back then, Claire, and we used to get a couple of nights a week. And I remember a young Gordon Ramsay coming into the club and doing some training sessions. And I do remember at that point, I think just before an S form or around about the kind of S form situation, I do remember young Gordon Ramsay coming in. At that point, you don't really get to know a lot of people that well because you're coming in on the Tuesday or the Thursday or whatever. You're not spending an awful lot of time except on the training ground. But no, Mr. Ramsay was a bit unfortunate with his situation. I'm sure he's got no regrets today as to where his career has went and how wonderful he has done. But as I said, you do come across a lot of these very gifted young players that for whatever reason they get an injury or they just lose a bit of passion or a bit of direction and they move on to bigger and better things. And many, many times, Claire, it could be the best decision in your life. And for that young Gordon Ramsay, it certainly was a fantastic decision for him to move on and go down a different route.
Absolutely. Blessing in disguise.
Absolutely, Claire.
Now, Billy, we're now on to the quick fire round of questions. So, question one, who is the greatest ever player you've played with?
Claire, I've got to say that, and I say this honestly, it's a question I get asked quite a bit. When I look at the players that I played with through all the clubs that I'd been at, there's so many good players, Claire. I mean, literally there is so many good players, so many excellent goalkeepers, defenders, midfield players, wide players, strikers. I mean, you name it, Claire. There's just so many good players that I couldn't really name who the best one was. All I could say to you was there was a tremendous amount of, an abundance of talent at every club. Tremendous players to play with, tremendous guys in the dressing room. Great education from all of them. Wonderful, happy memories. And I thank every one of them for the times they gave me as a player, both on and off the pitch, because we did have some great laughs and great fun and great stories to tell. But no, Claire, you can't get me in that one, Claire. There's just too many good players.
Understandable. And who was your toughest opponent?
Oh, now that's a good question. I would say that my toughest opponent was probably John Davies and John Spencer. I played John Spencer for Dunfermline against Rangers. I played against John Davies with Clive Bank and St Johnstone, I think it was. There was a lot of banter during the 90 minutes, as you can imagine, Claire. A lot of ridicule going on about who's the best player and who's the best team. So I've got to say these two were tough opponents. But going on to the football, the actual football tough opponent, Claire, I would say to you, there's two things. There's two very distinctive memories that I've got. One, playing against Ray Wilkins for Rangers. Ray Wilkins was a fantastic opponent to play against and probably gave me the biggest education on losing markers. I could not get close to the guy. The way that he played, the way that he moved, the way that he got yards to go and get on the ball. And playing against Ray was a real education. And I remember asking him after one of the games, how come it's so difficult to mark you? And where did you get that education from to gain that yard or two to get on the ball, turn and play? And he told me it was from his time in Italy, where he got a lot of great education on man markers and losing players. So playing against Ray Wilkins, I've got to say, Claire, was a big education on losing markers. And then the other one I'll throw into you was Motherwell against Borussia Dortmund. Borussia Dortmund in Dortmund. And there was three midfield players called Matthias Sammer, German international, Andreas Müller and Stefan Freund. And what they taught me, Claire, was the excellence of midfield rotation. Because I could not play against one of them. Every time I turned my head and looked at Matthias Sammer, it was now Andreas Müller or it was Stefan Freund. And the rotation in that side back then, the education that I got from that midfield trio and this great Borussia Dortmund side just stuck in my mind for a very, very long time because it was great education. And of course, at the very late and sad to lose Ray Wilkins. Very, very sad to lose Ray, but looking back on it, he gave me a tremendous education as a younger player on how to play against that experience and that quality. And it certainly has, again, stood me in good stead in my own managerial and coaching career.
That's fantastic. And tell us one thing about you that we don't know.
One thing about me that you don't know, I love cycling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very keen golfer. I've got a lovely dog, a female Rottweiler called Mila that spends most of my days looking after her. She's now 8 years of age. She's been an absolute legend, a fantastic dog, wonderful, wonderful dog to have. Gave us great time since she's been a pup. So I've got to say Mila has given us some really, really great memories. And, you know, at 8 years of age just now, she's the main girl in this house, Claire, I've got to tell you. She's the boss. She's spoilt rotten. And she demands getting these walks morning, noon and night. But I would say to you those three things, Claire. I love my golf. I love my cycling. And more importantly, I love my wee darling called Mila, the 8-year-old Rottweiler that's brought us so many great memories so far.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. And what advice would you give to your younger self, Billy?
My advice to younger self, I think it's a really good question, that Claire. Very good question. I think like everything else, it's trying to be true to yourself. Just keep being true to yourself. Trying to be as honest as you can and transparent as you can. Work very hard, as I did. I'm a great student and also I work very hard in my profession. But certainly, I think being true to yourself is important. Having the belief in what you're trying to do is very important. Sometimes it's not because you're doing something right you find things changing. It's because there's things getting done wrong elsewhere that makes that change happen. But as long as you're true to yourself, as long as you're as honest as you can be, you're trying to do the best things for the best interest of people. I think I would always say that to my younger self, Claire, that true to yourself is very important.
Absolutely, here. And where do you see yourself in 5 years' time, Billy?
On a training ground, loving football, loving coaching, loving managing. I've still got a lot to give the game in management, Claire, and at the minute I'm thoroughly enjoying my time with Dougie Imrie at Morton. Great club, great people. The people inside the building have been a joy to work with. I've thoroughly enjoyed being on that training ground, in those meetings with Dougie and his staff, some great staff members as well. So I think Morton Football Club has took away some rustiness that I had, been out of the game for such a long time, Claire. I've now removed that. I'm now back into the swing of it. I'm loving the meetings. I'm loving the video analysis. I'm loving the coaching. I'm loving the game and team preparation and organisation. And I've got that buzz back again. I feel as though I've now dusted all the cobwebs off me over the years, being out of the game, Claire. I now feel that's in Morton and Dougie, who I thank very much, the board and everybody else. I thank them very much for the opportunity. They've now given me the spirit back in that I need. I'm now back into the swing of it and thoroughly enjoying it. But in the next 5 years, Claire, back on the training ground, back helping players get better, back managing a team, and back looking forward to these challenges that you face every week against some excellent players, excellent teams, and of course, excellent clubs. And that's exactly where I'll be, Claire. You'll get me with my boots on in that pouring rain, shouting and bawling at players, trying to make them better.
Fantastic. And on the subject of Morton, what would you call success for Greenock Morton this season?
Well, I think it's difficult to put a time period on it. We're talking about this to the board and the manager. And we're talking about when you build something special, then it doesn't get done overnight. It gets done over a period of time. And looking at this football club, Morton, then there's no doubt there's tremendous ambition here. We all want to get to the top four. We all want to get to the Premier League. But the one big question that we agreed on, the board, Dougie and myself, is, like as I said to them, Claire, about Derby weren't ready for the Premier League. There was a whole range of departments that weren't in the right place. There was a whole range of people that weren't in the right place. And one of my big messages to the Morton board and the manager and the staff and all the people involved, we will do all we can to get as high up the league as possible. But the most important thing is being ready, not just on the pitch, but also off the pitch. We have got to be ready to go into that next level and then have all the different departments and the structures in place for the club that make that challenge much, much easier, rather than getting in there too early and then finding yourself constantly trying to push water up a hill. So I think this season we'll certainly have a go at trying to get to the top four. It is the toughest league it has been for a number of years in the Scottish Championship. There's some very, very big teams, a lot of money spent in some of these clubs. But the board and the people at Morton have been very supportive. We've got that ambition as staff and players and board members, fans. We want to do the best we can, and we'll certainly have a right go this year, Claire, at trying to get into that top four. But that message is important. Are we ready to go into the Premier League? And before we do that and achieve that, we have to make sure that throughout the club, we've got all the right things in place that help us when we go into the top level, that keep us there for a very long time.
Absolutely. I think the Championship in many ways is better. The same with the English Championship as well. It's actually better than the top league because it's more competitive, I would say. And I just think there's so many amazing teams in that league. So, yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how you and Dougie get on. It's going to be very, very exciting, certainly. So,
well, it's a very tough league, Claire, as you said. And we did talk about this to the board and Dougie and I. and the staff are all talking, that there's no doubt, we all recognise that this has probably been the toughest Championship league over the last number of years, because there's so many good clubs in the division and so many clubs throwing a lot of money, like the Ayr Uniteds, the Partick Thistles, the Dunfermlines, the Ross Counties, the Wraith Rovers, and all these other great clubs in this league. Claire, there's a lot of money getting spent. Competition is very high. People are very well organised, and it's not easy to pick up 3 points. So it's an exciting time, an exciting league, but we look forward to the challenge.
Absolutely, and fingers crossed that everything goes well this
Thank you.
season. And Billy Davies, it's been an absolute pleasure having you as my guest today on Clara in Conversation, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast. I hope with all my heart that you and Dougie Imrie have real success at Morton. The very early indications are that things are going really well. Billy will be joining Dougie Imrie at the Inverkip Hub on Saturday the 8th of November 2025 at an event hosted by Jerry McDade. Tickets can be obtained by Ticket Source, and the £22.50 admission includes a half-time pie, a drink, a Q&A and a meet and greet session. It is a fantastic opportunity for all Morton fans to go along and hear about Billy and Dougie's plans for Morton going forward, and not only this season but hopefully in seasons to come. It is definitely recommended. If you want to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe to my channel and click the little grey bell to be notified of when I next upload a video. Billy, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Claire, it's an absolute pleasure. I thought you were absolutely brilliant on the podcast. Keep up the great work. It was a pleasure to join you. I thoroughly enjoyed the chat. It was excellent to talk about all these different things over the years. But listen, I wish you all the very best in future podcasts. And you know where you are. If we can do anything for you or anybody else, we're more than happy to help. But listen, thank you very much. It's been a joy, and I wish you well.
Thank you.